Good evening, class. Hopefully you guys are doing very, very well as we go into this shortened week, holiday weekend coming up. Hopefully you guys all have wonderful plans. Going over a few different things. First forms are all in. Nice job, you guys who got those in. My hope is to have them graded in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll get those out back to you guys. Don't forget, this week there are 2 chapters we're covering, chapters 2 and 3. Next week we cover 3 chapters, and next week will be your first exam. So thank you for all of you who emailed me when you have issues. Hopefully I'll get back to you guys as fast as I can. I understand there were some book issues. If those have not been solved, if you would please reach out to me once again so we make sure you guys have those. So let's get right into it. Chapter 2, Developing a Marketing Plan. Probably one of my favorite chapters. Again, my background is in sales and marketing, so these chapters do tend to get me kind of fired up. The one thing they talked about is teaching you guys the difference between marketing, sales. A lot of times they kind of get lumped into the same category, and that's not really true. They are 2 separate ideas, 2 separate concepts. And you guys need to know the differences. So again, as we look at this, marketing is more your long-term planning, analysis, looking at trends and strategies, profits and plannings. The book does a fantastic job of laying out the definition for that. Your sales side is more of what we might call field work or desk work, really the tactics, really the actual selling, if you will, getting on the phone, talking to clients. More short term, looking at today's results. Did we hit our quotas? Did we make our sales? Are we going to make our month? Are we going to hit our commission? So again, I always kind of say sales is kind of the doing, if you will, and marketing is the plan. So you have your plan. The sales aspect is bringing that plan to life, if you will. Book goes into great detail. Make sure you guys are reading all through that. So as we get into that, we're going to talk about the marketing mix. The book talks about the 4 P's: product, place, promotion, price. Please, guys, take your time, read those, and really understand them. Every single one of those has a special place as we go through the sales process. Okay, and you guys really want to know what those are, how they apply, then how we're going to use our sales tactics and take advantage of those different the 4 P's. So the next section there was going to go over the 4 steps of the marketing plan. Now again, the book does a great job of going into the analysis side of the marketing plan, and it is tremendous. First, let me give you the 4 steps: marketing research, target market and positioning, objectives and action plans, and then lastly, reviewing and monitoring. So again, talking about marketing research, going in, knowing our markets, knowing what's out there, knowing what affects our markets, when we have those effects, how does it affect the hotel then? Your target markets, again, we're going to talk in greater detail about that, but who you're targeting. Like in my world, again, I target the corporate markets in the athletics world. One of my coworkers is marketing the associations. Those are all different entities. They all have their own characteristics. They all have their own nuances, if you will. There are different ways you approach each one. There are just, again, they all have their own characteristics, if you will, and you have to know those before you go into and try to sell and use your different tactics. How we position ourselves in each of those markets, if you will, is going to be different. I think we talked a little bit about this in the last chapter, how different the association market is, where you're working with committees. It could be a 3 or 4 year process, as opposed to maybe the corporate market where I have an independent planner. I could have someone who's been planning for years for that corporation. It's a 3-week process, a 1-month process. It could be within that week if they know exactly what they're looking for. So again, there are nuances to all these different markets. Your objectives and action plans, those are going to be something, again, as sales reps, you will have action plans. Here are the accounts I'm responsible for, or here are my top 10 accounts I'm going to go after. What are my action steps? Again, how am I going to get myself there? Is it telephone calls? Is it emails? Is it in person? Am I sending notes? Am I sending letters? Am I going to different seminars with the idea of strengthening my knowledge of that particular industry? If I'm going after car manufacturers, it might be a little bit different than if I went after the pharmaceutical market. So again, your action plans are basically your steps on how you're going to accomplish your goals. And lastly, the reviewing and the monitoring. And that is key because, again, as you put your action plans together, as you begin to look at your markets and your analysis, things change. And we have to adjust accordingly. So, if we looked at our plan and as it's going along, it's just not quite getting done what we need to do, that's where we review. That's where we're monitoring it. We step back and say, okay, we need to tweak this. We need to adjust that. It could be the plan is dead on perfect and we don't want to touch a thing. But the monitoring and reviewing is very, very key to make sure that we know that the tactics and the strategies that we put in place are indeed taking us to where we want to go. Like I said, the book really does a great job of touching on that. The other thing we talk about when again we do our research, they're going to talk about how we do analysis not only of the competition but of ourselves. And you're going to hear the term SWOT: strength, weaknesses, um, ah, um, SWOT. Boy, that's not good. Sorry. SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's your SWOT analysis. So we do that on ourselves. We do that on the competition. We need to know where our weaknesses are. We need to know what are threats to us. We need to know where we can be threats to our competition. So again, the analysis that you're going to do is going to be in depth, and you've got to look at yourself with a true eye. You can't gloss things over. You can't say, oh no, that's not really a weakness. You look hard at yourself, and you know where you're strong, and you know where you're weak, and you know when you go into conversations with clients what's going to come up. And that's going to make you a better sales rep and in a better sales position, if you will. You're also going to know how you're going to sell against the competition, but by doing the SWOT analysis of yourself, you know how they're going to sell against you, and you can be prepared as clients may bring up things that you know that's what the other hotel is telling them. Hey, this is a weakness of theirs. You're ready to address it. You're ready to show the client that it's not a weakness, and here's how we're going to strengthen ourselves. So again, that SWOT analysis is huge when we look at our competition and we look at ourselves. So when we go into chapter 3, now we're looking at the organization of our convention sales department, if you will. And this is going to vary greatly from one hotel to the next. The book's going to talk to you in great detail about different size hotels. What you see from a convention style hotel like the Crowne Plaza, like the JW Marriott, like the Westin downtown is going to be different, say, from a limited service property. When you're looking at a Hilton Garden Inn, when you're looking at a Holiday Inn Express, and those kind of properties. So it's going to vary to some degree. The one thing I have to make sure I touch on, and I can remember the first time I read this in this book about 3 years ago, and I about jumped, again, I couldn't fast enough say no. There is a paragraph within the first 2 pages of chapter 3 that says, having non-salespeople get on the phone and make prospecting calls. Pulling someone from the kitchen, pulling someone from the front desk, pulling someone from the bellman stand, and having them do prospecting calls. I could not disagree with this anymore. It is, again, you're taking this class, the idea is, to become strong in sales, strong in that world. We're not going to put someone on the phone who doesn't understand how to do it. It is not an easy process. You can lose a client in a conversation just as fast as you can win one. And saying the wrong thing is just as dangerous as positive as saying the right thing is. So I'm not going to put someone on the phone who cannot carry the conversation, cannot ask the right questions, who have not been trained to listen for the right answers. It is as I think, much as people like to say, it's a simple process. To some degree, it is. But the good people, the really, really strong sales reps, understand that there are tactics and there are strategies that you have to use that take time to develop. And just by putting someone on the phone to make phone calls, just to reach out to more corporations in my world or more clients in general, can do as much harm as good. So I totally disagree with that. You don't put non-salespeople on the phone. You don't have them act in a role that's not theirs. The same way you would not put me in the kitchen and ask me to cook dinner for 100 people, a $100 a plate meal. I wouldn't put my lead chef, as fantastic as he is as a chef, I'm not putting him on the phone to talk to my clients about sales opportunities. It's just not going to happen. So again, I disagree with that, but the book is going to touch on that. So what's the function of the sales office? Well, first and foremost, our job is to put heads in beds. We are the revenue generating arm of the hotel. And whether that is overnight rooms, whether it is meetings, whether it is social events, or a combination thereof, that's our focus. That's what we're out to do, is to, again, introduce our product, our hotel, to potential clients. And then obviously form a relationship with them and hopefully, again, generate revenue for the hotel. So, who and how do the sales interact with in the hotel? We interact with everybody. We're probably closest in interaction with our client services people, obviously, because in many hotels, the sales department is going to sell the individual. Uh, Sorry, my computer just went out. They're going to sell the individual client on the different nuances of the hotel, and in a lot of cases, we hand that over to the client services department, who's going to make everything happen. It is an interesting dynamic, you guys, and it's something that if you sell somewhere else before you get into this industry, it will be difficult to make the adjustment. And I'll give you an example. When I sold in athletics and when I sold in staffing, a lot of times what I sold, then I serviced. So in other words, if I made you a promise and I got you to sign the contract, it was up to me to fulfill the promises in the contract. That's not how it always works in the hospitality industry, and especially at the Crown Plaza, we have what's called Crown Meetings Directors. There are client services agents, if you will. Once I get a contract signed, once I've got everybody, all the parameters together, I hand that over to my Crown Meetings Director. And that's very difficult because I've just told my client, here's everything I'm promising you, and I'm going to make this happen. But this person over here is actually going to be the one that does it. It takes a lot of trust on my part. It takes a lot of understanding that I can't promise things that we can't deliver on. And obviously, I have to have a fantastic relationship with my client services person so I don't put them in a position to fail. That the things I promise are things that we can do, things that are within our umbrella and our strengths to pull off. So again, that's who we're probably most close with. Again, the banquets department is very similar as well because we're talking about room setup, we're talking about AV, what kind of meals we have, what pricing structure we're using. So again, that encompasses all of them as well. And then the other ones we probably work just as close with is our revenue management department because obviously they're the ones who are looking at trends in the industry and saying, hey, these are the rates you need to get. We're not going to leave money on the table. The hotel at this time in our market, with the compression the city's at, you should be getting this. So there's a lot of back and forth with the revenue department. But really, in all honesty, even though those are probably the three that we work the most with, there is no department that as a sales manager, I don't touch. Front desk, valet, our restaurant, room service, you name it, engineering. Everything that I promise in a contract, everything that I go to a client and say, we can do this or I can't do this, is going to affect some aspect of the hotel. And if I don't know their strengths and I don't know their weaknesses or things that we can and can't do, I can put them in a very bad position because I'm setting them up for failure. My hope is to set them up for success, and also they're setting me up for success because I'm obviously promising that they can handle certain things, and they have to go forth and do that. So again, it definitely is we talk about all the time, the circle, if you will, that there's nobody that's more important than the other. And it definitely is a misconception to think that the sales department is the end-all be-all for a hotel. Yes, we make the first initial contact. Yes, it's my responsibility to generate the revenue. But if my housekeeping department can't clean a room, it doesn't matter. I'm going to lose that client after one stay. If the front desk staff doesn't have their act together and can make sure that reservations are pulled up correctly and that the check-in process is smooth and carefree, if engineering doesn't respond quickly to something going wrong in a room, then again, no matter what kind of salesperson I am, it's not going to matter. The experience won't live up to the expectations I've set, and we're going to fail as a team. And so again, I always go back to it. There is no one department that's any more important than the other. We all have a role, and they all interconnect. So let's talk a little bit about how you set up the staff, or I should say a typical sales staff, if you will. Again, this is going to vary upon hotel. It's going to vary upon brand. And it's going to vary upon what the emphasis of that hotel is. Again, in my world, we are a true convention center hotel. We're attached to the convention center. We have 55,000 square feet of meeting space. We are a meetings property. Now, we also can do social functions because of the size of some of our ballrooms. So that's our umbrella, if you will. That's kind of where we're going to go after. So our sales staff is set up accordingly. We have a director of sales. Now, they also talk about having a director of sales and marketing. In our particular hotel, we don't have this. And what's really funny is I pick up some of those marketing responsibilities. So where the hierarchy is director of sales, and then you go into the sales manager's position, I carry some of those responsibilities. I am a sales and marketing manager, kind of a hybrid, if you will. So, again, I sell a certain market, corporate and athletics, and then I also run all of our social media. So, again, all of my responsibilities report to our director of sales. How many sales managers you have depends on the size of the hotel. Again, in our world, we break it down where we do have SMERF, we do have associations, again, corporate and athletics. We have a catering sales staff that strictly handles the catering functions. They have very, very few overnight rooms. We have an express sales manager who's handling quick, small meetings that take they're very quick turnaround times. And in that position, it's very unique because the term is she cooks it and books it, or books it and cooks it, I should say. So not only does she book the meeting, whereas I book it and hand it off to somebody else, she'll book it and then actually act as a Crown Meetings Director and be there to implement everything. So a very unique position. And then as you go down, again, you're going to have your client services division, which we call Crown Meetings Managers or Crown Meetings Directors. You may have some specialties as well. Our hotel, because of our ballroom space, has special wedding planners. And we have a wedding sales coordinator who actually is our director of catering, and then a gal who actually implements the weddings. And she's there day of, and she's doing all the operations. So again, because of the size of our hotel and our unique meeting space, we have a special position for weddings only. That's not typical in a lot of hotels. That usually probably be handled by the catering staff. Lastly, we have a group revenue manager. That's somebody who actually implements all of our group bookings into the system that we use, which is called Opera, and that's where we list all the reservations we have. So she is, incredibly important because you've got transient bookings coming in through a central reservation system that feeds into this system as well. And then all of our group bookings, Dawn is her name. Dawn is entering all of that in there. So they have to coexist. It is incredibly important for her to have everything right, because then it allows us to know what our true inventory is. Hey, we've got 20 rooms to sell on this date. Nope, we have 120 rooms on this date. If she doesn't get it right, it messes up the whole system. And we're very fortunate in my world that she's been with us 26 years and she's actually phenomenal. How does that change on the size of the hotel? Well, limited service property, you're not going to see that many variations in the sales process. You can have one sales manager that does it all. They do transient, they do group, they do catering, they do the whole shebang. Maybe they only have 100 overnight rooms. You look at something like the JW Marriott, which has, they think it's 1,001 rooms, and the complex itself has 1,600 rooms. They could have 2 corporate, 4 SMERF, 4 associations, and it's broken down by geography, where the West Coast is handled by this sales manager, the Midwest is handled by this one. Could be broken down by size. Hey, overnight rooms between 100 and 150 is going to this sales rep. If it's over 150, it's going to this sales rep. So again, everybody does it a little bit different, and it depends upon the strengths of your hotel and what you're trying to sell. So keep that in mind as far as the number of sales managers you're going to have and what the different responsibilities are. You're always going to have a great administrative staff if you're very lucky. You're going to have admins, receptionists. You might be lucky enough to have somebody who is prospecting. That's all they do. So they're setting up appointments. They're searching for actual business. And you as a sales manager don't have to prospect. You're getting RFPs. They're finding the leads. You're actually putting together the proposal and sending it out. So that's a great world if you can be in, because again, the hardest part of any sales position is the prospecting and then constantly trying to find new business. If you've got one person who is doing that for you, you're in a very good position. The other thing you're going to also see with a lot of the big chains, especially again, your Marriotts, your Westins, your Crowns, you will have global sales positions. So for instance, Crown Plaza falls under Intercontinental Hotel Groups, or IHG. So that would include Intercontinental Hotels, Crown Plazas, Holiday Inn, Holiday Inn Express, Candlewood Suites. There's about 7 or 8 different brands that we have. We have global sales managers who might be working with these rather large companies, your Coca-Colas, Merck, Bristol Myers Squibb, again Gatorade, Nike, and those kind of people, where the people at Nike who are planning 300 meetings a year across not just the United States but across the world will call up my global sales manager who has got their fingers, if you will, on the pulse of 4,600 different properties, and they might say, hey, we're going to Atlanta in July, we're going to Dubai in January, and we're in Indianapolis in June. Here's the parameters. Please send this down to your properties in those areas and get us, they're sending the RFPs and get us the proposals. And so it's just kind of a way to instead of them having to call every single property in all those cities, they'll call these global sales reps and they'll filter it down to us. So you'll see that in a lot of different, again, most of your bigger brands are going to have that. Now, the one thing the book touched on, and it touched on it very briefly, and I know we're going to get into this in more detail, and it's just so fortunate. Today I actually spoke to a class over at Butler about this very topic, but it talked about relationship marketing and its importance. And we are going to touch on this, but I want to set it up right now. The relationship you have with your clients and how you develop that is tremendous. And you will hear over and over and over, it can take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years to develop those kind of relationships where the trust factor is so strong that they call you and it's not even, they don't even think about anybody else. We have a meeting, we call JJ at the Crown. We have a social function, we call Jess at the Crown. It's just instinctive. It doesn't happen overnight by any stretch of the imagination. And it takes years a lot of times to build that. Now the flip side of that is it can go away in the blink of an eye. It takes one major screw up. It takes one moment of lost trust because a promise wasn't fulfilled. So keep that term in mind. Relationship marketing, it is huge for this industry. It is huge for any aspect of selling. And when we say relationship marketing, it's not about being buddy-buddy with a client. That will sometimes happen. But as I discussed this morning with the class over at Butler, you don't have to like clients. Clients don't have to always like you, but there has to be a respect, and there has to be a trust, and there has to be a common goal of coming together to have, for them, the best meeting possible. So, there are clients who I definitely, would go out and have a beer with, who I will take to ball games as thank yous. There are other clients where our relationship is strictly business, and I'm called when there's a need, and if there's no need, they're not calling me. So again, it's going to be different, but when you get to a point where there is such a trust factor that you are a resource for them, and we'll touch on this as well, because in my world, I don't like the fact that we are called salespeople. I think sales usually gets the wrong perception. Most of us think of a sleazy used car salesman. I hate that concept. I hate that terminology. I hate that visual. That's not what I do, and I never have. And for 9 years now in this industry, I have been a resource for my clients. Whether that resource means selling my property, whether it means getting them contacts downtown for dinner, whether it's getting them in touch with the destination management company to do pickup and drop-offs at the airport, I want to be a resource for them when it comes to anything in our industry. And that's the difference than just straight up sales where I'm trying to get your piece of business and I'm forgetting about you. That's not how we do it. Relationship marketing is about always being there for the client, no matter what the need is, and having their best interest in mind. And I'll touch on this too. There have been times when talking to a client, it becomes very clear that the things they're asking for and they're looking for are not a match for my hotel. You want this, this, and this. You want A, B, and C, and my hotel really is HIJ. And so I'll stop in mid sentence. You know what? From what I'm hearing from you, what you're looking for is not what I have. You're the square peg, I'm the round hole. I'm not going to try to fit you in there. However, the Westin down the street, they are exactly what you're looking for. Everything you just said. Let me give you their sales manager's name and number, and let's get you over there and see if they can take care of you. Why do I do that? Well, it goes back to building that trust and relationship. Yes, can I jam you into my hotel and make you fit? Sure, I can. I'm going to get you one time, you're never going to come back, and you're going to tell 7 different people how terrible the experience was. Or I can step up and say, you know what? This is not a good fit. This is not what you're asking for may not be a strength of mine. So being the resource, wanting to strengthen our relationship, and obviously being truthful and building trust, hey, this is not us. You're going to need us sooner or later. This event, though, you don't. You need this property. Let's get you over there. Let's take care of you. I promise you, the client will look at you bug-eyed, they'll walk away, and they'll realize, holy cow, he's looking out for my best interest. And they will remember that. And I cannot begin to tell you the number of stories I have where I've told a client, you know what, it just doesn't sound right, like this is a good fit for us. Let me see if we can get you someplace else. Or I can't do this, let me find you the person who can. They respect that. They love the fact that you didn't try to make something happen that you can't do. And they will come back to you when the opportunity arises where you are a good fit. So again, we'll definitely touch more about relationship marketing as the year goes along. So managing the sales effort, again, some really great things in here I want you guys to know. The 4 things they talked about. Having standard operating procedures. In a sales department, this is incredibly important. Everybody has to be working by the same rules. Everybody has to be on the same page. If we are breaking down our sales efforts by markets, it has to be understood JJ has all the corporate business. Patty has all the association business. I'm not supposed to put proposals together for the association world. Get it to Patty. That's a standard operating procedure. We always list everything in our Delphi system, and if a contract is out for something, then it's coded in this color. In our world, it's blue. If it's just a proposal, it's red. If it's just a proposal, that means I can put a proposal on top of it. If it's green, that means it's gone to contract and that's a no-touch date anymore. That room is taken. Don't promise it to anybody. Those kind of things have to be in place so that the sales office runs smooth and there's a trust amongst your team. Okay. Sales meetings, you know what? None of us like meetings, but they are a necessary evil. You got to get together every now and again and discuss things. What are trends in the industry? What are you seeing from clients? What are you seeing from clients? How do my experiences help you either A, not make the same mistake I did, or take advantage of a success I found? Best practices amongst our staff. What do you see that's working as far as getting a hold of clients? Hey, your client was impressed by this particular break you took over to them. Let's make sure I do that as well. So again, always good to make sure we're plotting, where we're at. If our goal is to be at 150 million for the year, are we progressing towards that? Are we seeing the growth that we need? So again, that goes back to the whole idea of reviewing, monitoring, looking at how we're doing. Very, very important. Kind of touched on this again, the assignments of the accounts and the markets. Again, as I said, guys, different hotels will do it differently. Some will assign it by markets where, again, you're going to have all the SMRF. You're going to have all the association. Maybe it's in your particular area, government and education are just huge markets. So you strictly have somebody who's just selling government and education. And then we take sports and social and we combine them with corporate. So it can be done any way you want to, but that's going to be laid out ahead of time and everybody's going to know where their focus should be. Lastly, and probably very important, your data system. And I think the majority of the hotels now work within the Delphi system. Your book is going to touch on some things, non-computerized ways that we have kept records before. My understanding is there are probably very, very few hotels that don't have some form of a data system where they're listing their clients, listing your contacts, listing your interactions with them. Listing business, again, and hopefully all of you have seen the Delphi system. If you've taken Intro to Lodging, which I taught last semester, you guys know you had to go through and get your Delphi certification. And that system is absolutely tremendous for our industry. We can put in there, hey, here are all the ballrooms that we have. Here are the overnight rooms we have and the different room types. And you put in 100 years worth of dates. And now we can go in and check and say, hey, it looks like on December 30th that, in my world, the Illinois Street Ballroom is taken and the Monon Ballroom is taken, but Grand Central is available, so I can book into that. That is tremendously important so that we're not overbooking, that we're not promising something we don't have. And it's great to have the history. If I leave tomorrow, the next person who comes in and handles corporate sales for my hotel will be able to look at every single one of my clients and say, oh, they were here in 2012, they were here in 2014, they used this ballroom, they had this many overnight rooms, they generated this much revenue. We can generate reports off of all this. That system is invaluable, and to this day, I use it 1,001 different ways. So you will do the same thing. Like I said, it's just incredibly important that you have all of that. So guys, that was a quick synopsis over chapters 2 and 3. Again, we don't really have anything to do this week. We had one forum last week. You kind of are off this week. Next week, it gets busy again. You got the forum. You got your first test. Continue to email me if you have questions. The toughest thing with these online classes is I can't tell what you're getting, what you're struggling with. Please reach out to me if we need to have a conversation on the phone. If you need to set up a time to come by the hotel and sit down and talk a little bit, I am more than open to that, guys. My wish is to make all of these in classroom, but I know for a lot of you that's just not possible. We're working multiple jobs, or we already have families, and this is the necessity. This is how we're going to do it. So, but like I said, I am accessible. Text me, call me, feel free to stop by, but call in advance to set up an appointment. But again, if you're having any problems with this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. All right, guys, have a great week. Look forward to talking to you next Monday.